Our next speaker is Ridwan Oloyede. Ridwan is the partner at Tech Hive Advisory, and he provides insight and advisory services on privacy and data protection, cybersecurity, data ethics, and policy issues. He's a research fellow at the African Academic Network on Internet Policy and has amassed a considerable amount of experience as a legal practitioner in the data privacy space. You're welcome, Ridwan. So the core items for this particular session are the ethical considerations for data management in the legal service industry, and also gaining familiarity with policy developments and deployment in law firms. Thank you for joining us, Ridwan.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. I'm trying to share pull up my slides right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, don't mind my topic, but let's just assume there's a law firm part there. So essentially, I would be speaking to data ethics in data management for law firms, and knowing fully well what the outcome of this session should be. We'll try as much as possible within the short time frame that we have to go over as many things as possible. So top of our head right now, I know if we mentioned ethics as a subject, it means so many things to us. But I think the common line, my opinion is the common line between whatever it is ethics means to any one of us is that the idea is making sure we do the right thing, just do the right thing. So what is the right thing? What defines the right thing? Those are the key questions. What's the standard? What are the metrics to measure what is the right thing? So, and of course, as a law firm, as an establishment, Toby has gone over this, talking about how we work as an organization, the kind of data that we process, volume of data that comes into our possession. Often than not, we do so many things that we don't even have an idea of the kind of data that we hold as an organization. And I'm going to say this, whether you're big size, whether you're small size, whether you're mid size, it's always very important that you at least have some idea of, if you can't do a data categorization or classification yet, I think you should do a mapping, do a scoping of your environment, and have an inventory of the kind of data that you use, that you have, that you keep, that you process. So when you have an inventory, you have a firm understanding and a 360 view of your environment. Subsequently, you'll be in a better place on how to manage your risk, how to implement safeguards, how to do the right thing, basically. When we spin ethics into, we know how controversial ethics could be, whether we're talking about issue of whether it's sexual orientation, maybe homosexuality, abortion, prostitution, all those difficult lines. Ethics is something that is pretty much very, very subjective. And if we bring it into the digital sphere too, it's pretty much the same thing, because societal norms, so many variables actually influence or dictate what ethics is. And if you move from spot A to spot B, what is right there might be distinct from what is right there. So it's something that is actually quite difficult. It's something that is actually quite slippery, and but it's a conversation that it's important to have. And as we continue to see global competitive advantage, as we continue to do more interesting stuff globally, as law firms seeking collaboration with other law firms based outside the country, working on international transactions, doing really amazing stuff, providing services to people. We need to have that projection, because we can't discuss ethics in isolation and you leave out trust. That's the whole point, because you want trust, consumer trust. Because one thing is, once you take trust away from everything, it falls apart. And the implication of that also means loss of business, loss of revenue, exposure to even litigation, and so many things that you don't want to think of. These are costs you can't put into numbers. So, but once again, if you want to measure the metrics of, okay, what's the cost of doing the right thing, then you only need to know, what are we saving by doing the right thing? How much are we saving by doing the right thing? I don't know if that makes sense. So trying to define ethics, can be described as a code of behavior, specifically what is right or wrong. So in data ethics space, the Alan Turing Institute have tried to, and pretty much what is being agreed upon. There's a bit of consensus around this. So the ASTIC is shaped around data ambit, which covers the generation, the recording, curation, processing, dissemination, sharing, and use. Also, algorithm, AI, artificial agents, machine learning, and robotics, corresponding practices, which means responsible innovation, programming, hacking, professional codes. Data ethics build on foundation provided by computer and information ethics, but at the same time, it refines the approach and thus so far in the research field by shifting the level of abstraction of ethical inquiries from being information centric to being data centric. So in this context now, we're concerned about when you have the data, when you chase the data, when you use data, when you process the data, what are you doing with it? So as a law firm, for example, we might not know, but there are a number of things that we probably do and that will probably not be mindful of that falls outside the standard of what we call what can be called ethical. So increasingly, there's been so much conversation around legal tech space, automation, AI, deploying AI. ROS is a very important tool because I mean it was built on IBM's Watson, using analytics, using predictive analytics, and all of those things. Basically, deploying so many of these emerging technologies to making sure we are more efficient in what we do. So, but beneath it, so you need to understand what's the quality of the data sets, for example, that powers the products that you use. Is this same data set, is it possible that it could lead to some consequences on people? What measures do you have in place to make sure the automated processing is somehow checked? So, for example, we're seeing more automation around justice space. More recently, there was a big headline from New York Times. I've forgotten the name of the black guy who was profiled and, of course, was later found to be innocent, but then he had already suffered for what he didn't do. So our fear of bias, how diverse is the data set, for example, what's the quality of the data set that's being used? So, and as law firms too, as we continue to integrate some of these products too, those are some of the things that we need to have beneath our mind. So, for example, we have an example of the justice system that probably try to do things around small offenses and try to say, okay, maybe this person is guilty, maybe this person is not guilty. But if the data set, for example, that is fed or that is used to build the products, for example, is sort of lacks some context, lacks diversity, that means it could occasion bias on people across different lines, whether it's racial lines, whether it's religious lines, whether it's sexual orientation, whatever it is that distinguishes us. So those are some of the things we need to be mindful around. So, principle of data ethics. The first is human at the center. So, like I said, whatever it is you're doing, make sure do you have like human intervention? Do you have humans still making the decision? Because for whether it's AI, whether it's machine learning, whatever it is you're doing, when you train these things with the data set that you have, they basically make decisions based on what you've given to them. They don't do anything outside what you've basically given to it. So do you have some sort of human intervention? That you build it, is it human centric? Do you consider human rights? So there's a concept now we call human rights impact assessment. So whether you're developing a product, whether you're releasing new services, whether as a law firm, you're trying to do that, in quotes now, launch that new innovative product to serve your client better, to have a wider reach, to make more impact, to be more efficient. Have you really done human rights impact assessment? Have you checked whether some of this is actually impact humans who would end up being the users or who would probably be not victims now, but who would probably be affected by some of the things that you do? So the next thing would be individual data control. Yeah, you want somehow you can't leave the whole decision process making into to be just automated. You want some sort of human intervention such that when things go south, you are able to like fix the error. Also, you can also follow the chain of events. The next thing is transparency. Transparency is so key because it's like away from data ethics now. If you look at data protection, for example, which is probably one of the few things that tend to safeguard ethics. Some people will tell you specialization that it's called data ethics today has already been imbued into a very sizable aspect of data protection already. That you already have them in principles of data protection. And transparency as a principle, for example, is a recurrent thing. So transparency, people need to know. People need to know what you're doing. You need to inform them. And this goes out to, we need to ask ourselves as a law firm, as a legal tech provider, for example, what's your privacy notice saying, for example? Are you being transparent? Did you just lift your your notice from somewhere, from another law firm, and basically just replicated it? Is it genuinely mirroring what you do as an organization? Does it genuinely reflect your model? If you use cookies, define it. If you don't use cookies, define it. If you use data for a specific purpose, whatever reason that you use it, be specific. If you share it with third parties, let them know. And that's the bit of transparency. And the same thing is the same thing you'll find in transparency. So, quick one. Recently, there's been a bit of fuse around. I don't know if you've been those who probably have been following the bit around NBA election, for example. So, a couple of weeks ago, the list of accredited voters was actually shared. And if you look at the first list, you'd find out that it had names of people, their email address, their phone numbers. Of course, maybe there is a necessity purpose, there's some justifiable legal basis to do this. But the truth is, by exposing people's phone number and email address, you might leave them vulnerable to people disturbing them, people going after them for whatever reason. And the vulnerabilities of the threat landscape is actually quite endless. Toby must have delved much into that. Well, what I'm saying is, in essence, if you look at the association's website, for example, you won't find a privacy notice there. So this simply means there's nothing. And same thing is a recurrent thing you'll find in so many. I mean, it's something I do out of my playtime because it's something I enjoy doing. Just go around, pick random law firms, go and look at the few ones who actually have a privacy notice. Look at the quality of the notice. If it truly, I mean, you are in the space, you are in the scene, you know what you do in house. Look at if it genuinely reflects what they do as an organization. Moving on, equality is pretty much a very important thing. I've talked about the use of doing human rights impact assessment. Equality is something you want to see and that's where the issue of diversity, the issue of averting bias, the issue of making sure everyone is treated fairly comes in. Then there is accountability. Accountability means are you ready to answer questions when you are asked? Do you have measures to safeguard the rights of people? When they invoke their rights, are you ready to respect them? Do you document what you do? Do you have a record of the activities that you do? Do you document all of these things? And as an organization, we often ignore it. We miss it out because we don't see ourselves. We advise clients on data protection. We advise clients on probably even intersection of security with what they do, especially around the compliance bit. But we somehow find ourselves missing in the value chain. We don't look at ourselves as whether you're a controller for a purpose or whether you're a processor for a purpose or probably you're even a joint controller for a purpose. So accountability bit there comes in. Are you taking stock of what you're doing? Do you have a record of processing activities? That HR record, that HR department that you maintain, where you collect employees' data, for example, you will facilitate payroll management. You probably get third parties that manage these things, for example. You remit pension fund. You do the NICTF contribution. Do you have an agreement in place that's got like some sort of data protection clause protecting what you're doing? Do you recommend? Do you document all of these things? So those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. Moving on. So what are the risks? The risk is endless. Like I said, Toby must have said a lot from security point of view. And these are some of the things you see. So if you ignore ethics, you end up ignoring human rights. Altruism, whether it's commodification of people's data, where people sell data, people use collect data, then use it for some other purposes, and they never tell people what they actually do. Profiling, tracking, fingerprinting is a big thing, and it's something that the big tech companies take a big hit for. So, for example, um, there is we use, because we like to share, because we need to reach out to more people. We've got whether it's your Facebook, whether it's Google, whether it's Twitter, that you integrate into your website. And for the purpose of that, you become a joint controller with these companies too. Do you understand the obligations? Do you understand that when you allow Facebook to do some of these things, their users sometimes could be fingerprinted online, which means they can actually follow them. Do you understand the obligations? Do you try to probably even define it in your notice and like, yo, what we do is just limited to this. Whatever it is that happen afterwards, you can at least go ahead and go read Facebook notice to understand Facebook practices, for example. Also, do you understand that even if you don't have a Facebook account, Facebook can create some sort of shadow profile about people? Do you understand all these your obligations? Also, moving on, let's talk about prediction. So a lot has been said about predictive analysis, and some of these things, if the data set is wrong, it means you would get what is wrong. I mean, they say data don't lie, but actually you can make data do what you want it to do sometimes too. Data storage is a thing. So a lot of us, we probably don't. A lot of firms do this because, of course, there's the bits where you try to digitalize records, but there's the bits where records are still pretty much in paper form. So do you understand your data retention obligations under law, under contract, or your business need? If you understand your businesses, you understand that keeping things perpetually take up space. And that doesn't make so much of economic sense. You understand that maybe there is a law that says, okay, this thing you should probably keep it for this so period. And if you do beyond that period, what you're doing is actually quite illegal. You understand your obligations to all of these things. AI, automated processing, behavioral design. This is actually something that is actually quite scary. So whether it's in form of behavioral biometrics, or trying to understand people's behavior, or trying to influence their behavior. So I don't know whether we've done this. So whether it's you bump into an e-commerce website and they have, the way they build the UX, the user interface, you just want to stay on, and you want to just the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and maybe the things that should probably warn you, they obscure them in some colors that if you're not paying close enough attention, you're not going to see these things. The information that will probably save you from some, maybe ending up in a rabbit hole, they probably just put it in some form of design that if you don't look closely enough, it's obscured in some sort of color that you probably miss out on. So that's what you call dark design. How is your platforms built? When you render services, are all these things clear, such that you don't end up using behavioral design to do what is not right. So also data enrichment, data mining, data scraping. I mean, there's a lot of ethical issues around whether mining is good or whether scraping is bad. Mining can be good for so many reasons. I mean, for statistical use, for research purpose, mining is actually quite cool. Data scraping is actually quite cool for that. But if you do data scraping and mining for something else where you probably take advantage of people, and I'm going to give you an example. I don't know whether a lot of us followed the news very early in the year when there was a lot of scrutiny around an American company called Clearview AI that said it had over 3 billion faces on its database. And it actually built a facial recognition technology where they're capable of identifying you almost in real time. So we should probably just read up. There's an article by New York Times called the company that could probably the company that could bring there's something like around company that could bring the end of privacy as you know it, something like that. But we should probably read up on Clearview AI, for example. So whether you're on, I mean, it's cool when we get all these legal tech products. People want to onboard all these products for you and all of that. But do you really understand what these products are doing? Do you know whether they profile people? Do you know they might profile people? They might be able to deliver on the promises they've said, which is they probably automate things for you. They integrate things for you. They help you with efficiency. But maybe beneath it, they built some sort of design into it that maybe they've got some access into what you don't know, and you don't know about all of these things. So are you keeping tabs on all of these developments? Then, of course, reuse of data, which is repurposing, and bias, which is something I think flogged a lot today. So, why should organizations be interested in data ethics? For me, the first thing is always going to be to comply with regulations. And it's hard to draw the line sometimes because sometimes you might be doing what is legal, what you're doing is wrong. I'll say that again. You might be doing what is legal, but what you're doing is wrong. And there's quite a number of examples that actually speaks to that. What you're doing is perfectly legal. It's within the limitation of the law. But beyond what you're doing, it might actually be legal. It might actually be unethical. So also trust. I said trust. Trust is a very valuable currency. It's something you can't, like I said, you can't put monetary value on. If you lose it, you might never be able to recover from it. So trust. To ensure fair and reasonable data use, of course, you want to make sure whatever it is you're doing, it's under you embed fairness into it. You embed, and everything is done reasonably. Also, as much as possible, you minimize bias and social inequities. And this is always going to be an issue. For example, if you're relying so much on automated processing, it's not bad to rely on automated processing, but you have to make sure you've got safeguards in place, making sure what you're doing can't occasion danger and risk to people or violate their rights. Then also to develop positive public perception. If you sell ethics, beyond the phrase everyone tends to throw around, which is "we take your privacy seriously," and you can read that easily. But when you read it this way, "we take your privacy," and you put a comma there, then you have "seriously" after it. It means something completely different, which is pretty much what a lot of people do. They really take that privacy, and seriously they do, and because they actually steal it away from people. So, are you able to sell? Are you able to position yourself? Are you able to show the world that you're actually so keen on doing the right thing? That you don't take more than you need, for example. You don't keep it for longer than you need, for example. You're making sure every process and procedures you put in place actually consider human rights in it. You avoid making sure as much as products, there are safeguards to prevent bias and so many other side effects of using some of these tools. Yeah. So quick one. I said this earlier. We need to understand our responsibilities as an organization, whether from data protection view, whether you're a controller, whether you're a processor, whether you're even a joint controller, for example. You need to understand your responsibilities. And there's no way you can understand you will understand your responsibility if you don't understand your own environment itself. And you need to understand the nature of what you're getting into. So as a controller, you become a controller for your employees, for example. As a processor, if you take instruction from maybe a client, for example, you might be a processor. And in some cases, you might even be a joint controller with them. So I'm going to give few examples of law firms that have actually done some things wrong. So there was this big news a couple of years ago where Piper suffered a major data breach, and it was so big then. Quite a number of law firms too. I'm familiar with a case in Nigeria that we had to address. Where Toby talked about phishing today, where a law firm was in one instance they had their infrastructure taken offline, and they couldn't access anything. And the second, actually a quite big law firm here in Nigeria. The other instance was it was a mid-sized firm, and what happened was an instruction came from the managing partner to disburse money to a particular person. It came just the way the managing partner would have written an instruction. It came with an email marked like the managing partner's instruction. So I think what probably saved the day in that firm was because they had a policy where you had to make a call to confirm the instruction. So at the point of making a call to confirm the instruction, that we're able to know, no, it's not something that was really authorized by this so person. So these are things that happen. And once again, I keep saying we need to understand our responsibilities. We need to understand the space where we are playing, we need to understand that we're so vulnerable because we hold so much special categories of data, so many sensitive data. You are the one who knows the will of the social person. You are the one who knows who is a legitimate father, who is not a legitimate father. You've got so many things that when people start disclosing, I mean, it could expose them with so many things. We are the ones who see through so many of these things that members of the public never see. I mean, it's just like an iceberg. You see the tip, what is beneath it is huge. So we need to understand the value of what we hold and why it's so important for us to not only safeguard it, but also do the right thing while we're trying to do our business too. So also, a couple of weeks ago, a firm that actually provides services to a lot of people in the entertainment industry got hacked, exposing so many things about so many celebrities. I mean, a lot of them. Then I don't know whether I will follow the Panama Papers too. There was a law firm that was actually affected too. So beyond that, these examples are actually quite funny ones. A German court actually sanctioned a law firm for having an incomplete privacy notice. And I talked about this when I was talking about transparency. Do you have a privacy notice? Is your privacy notice genuinely reflecting what you do as a business? It's not enough that you have a notice. Your notice must reflect what you do as an organization. It must reflect your processing. You need to understand it. And it's quite interesting now because there are a lot of law firms who are actually DPCEOs. But like I said, we need to understand it's not just about doing it, or you might provide services to people, but have you looked inward? Have you had some sort of retrospect? Are you doing the right thing yourself? So yeah, the German law firm actually fined the lawyer for not having a privacy. And he had an incomplete privacy notice. Probably he just copied it somewhere and didn't even copy completely. Then this other one, it's
hello everyone.
yeah.
It appears your screen is not
Yeah,
full.
sorry.
Okay,
Okay, sorry.
much better now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for drawing my attention to that. Yeah. So the other example is a Spanish lawyer that got fined by the APD, that's the Spanish Data Protection Authority. That was a few weeks ago too. I mean, this is about something that happened 2 weeks ago. This is actually quite funny because what this guy did was, I don't know, maybe some stingy guy or something. Paper that was used for a particular case, for example, or maybe that contained an information of a client, he probably just spilled it over, turned it over, printed on the reverse side, and actually filed a process before the court, exposing the data of. I mean, it's quite funny, and I know it's. I worked in a law firm where that was like a common practice, where they said draft, they call it draft paper, something like that, where you do something and then you print on the reverse. How do you even manage all of those things? Those processes that, for example, those processes, those documents, those contracts that never make it to the table and that you have printed out, do you shred them? Do you delete them? Do people take it and use the reverse side to make jottings and they take it home? Also, as lawyers, I know it's fine. I mean, as colleagues, we need to share templates. When you share templates, do you redact person? There are so many transactions I've been privy to see because I asked for a template and someone shared with me and, oh, this is actually happening. Do you understand your obligations? Do you understand these things? You just scribble something, you're on a call, you're not probably not fully conscious, and you scribble some details on something, you squeeze it into your pocket, somehow it ends up in your suits or in your jacket, somehow it ends up with your dry cleaner. Those simple things. You're sending an email, you're meant to send it using the BCC feature, you end up using it using CC, exposing emails of other people. Are you mindful? All these simple things. They are so simple, but yet quite significant. So our guy, the Spanish guy, who was stingy or was economizing or probably lost the planet, yeah, got a fine of 2,000 euros, and that's a lot of money. I don't know what a roll of paper cost, but I don't know how much of a roll of paper will probably get with 2,000 euros. But that was the fine that the AEPD imposed on him. So, and like I said, whether you're doing security right, whether you're doing your protection right, whether you're doing your management right, whether you're doing your analytics, making predictions on what the next thing is, what's that next article people need to read. For example, if you're a law firm that you probably use Mondac, for example, or you use Lexology, I mean, they've got like back-end, really nice analytics that can help you predict what are people reading. You can even go as far as predicting what you need to write next. LinkedIn has the same feature too, so you know what you can, help you predict some of these things people want. You get an idea as to the audience that are reading your articles, you get probably even their email addresses and all of that. But the question is, are you doing the right thing after you've complied with the law? Are you still doing the right thing? After you implemented security features, are you still doing the right thing? When you're trying to grow your baseline, are you doing the right thing? Are you growing it the right way? Yeah, so what are best practices? Yeah, best practices is the list are endless. It's just like I said, ethics is something that is actually quite subjective. So it means something different to even all of us on this call. I mean, on this meeting, for example. So, but some things are like could easily cross across lines. And the first point is always going to be, I mean, data protection. Some principles of data protection could help you do the right thing. So, if um, as an organization, there's a specific purpose for doing something, which is just to provide a service to a client. Then let's just keep it at that. That's purpose limitation, just that purpose, strictly. Then there is data minimization, which is don't take more than what you need. If what you need is just for them to get past the case, it's not your business what their section orientation is. It's not your business what they do in lifetime. If it's not so important to the case you're doing, so keep it simple. Don't take more than you need. Because there's a Yoruba balance or a local balance that says, I need this is what makes the madman's luggage get so bulky. So just keep it at what you need and don't take more than that. Then there's the bits where you speak to, don't keep it for more than you need it to. I already spoke about what do you do with all those draft papers that never make it to the table, that never make it to the courtrooms, that never make it to the parties signing the agreements, for example. The ones you've got in your email, how do you manage those emails? Do you have time limitations on them? Of course, some of these things could become contentious in terms of litigation could spill out of them, and you need all of these things. But then, first, do you have a retention schedule? How do you manage your retention? When you're archiving or whether you're destroying, how do you destroy? Do you destroy completely or you destroy in a way that what you destroy is actually retrievable? So then transparency and accountability. I talked about this. This is actually also a principle under principle of data ethics. Then the number of privacy preserving techniques. I didn't use the word privacy enhancing technologies for a reason. So privacy preserving techniques, which means if you're sharing a draft, redact. I probably don't even want to see the properties. I don't even want to know where it emanated from. Like, okay, it was so for example, regulators issue draft guidelines. And maybe they didn't make disclosures about maybe the law firm they consulted. But by checking metadata don't lie. Metadata is the data about the data. So somehow I'll find out, this is the law firm that actually did this policy. From there, I'm able to form an opinion whether they know what they're doing or not, especially if it's like maybe something I'm probably familiar with. Or maybe they're probably helping the regulator, or maybe could possibly create problems for the regulator. So how are you managing all of these things? Encryption, Toby talked about encryption. Encryption is actually quite important. It's something that helps a lot. But then you need to know what you need to encrypt, what you don't need to encrypt to. And that's why you need to do that classification. So you know how sensitive an information is. You know the one that is not so sensitive, where you need to probably. So there's one simple thing we do, which is company registration. But you notice when you do company registration, you use like a national means of identification of someone. You use so in that national means of identification, aside the fact that you probably have their residential address, their phone numbers, their email address, their full names, that national means of identification will actually expose them to identity theft if you're not careful. And too many times, I see company incorporation form, I see littering everywhere. And this is something that is actually quite sensitive, especially when you have, whether it's the international passport number that you put there. This will actually expose people to a lot of things. So we need to be mindful of all of these things. Also, another practice that is actually quite funny is direct marketing. I don't know how that skipped my mind. So direct marketing is, you've got a service, you need to reach out to people, you send them. I know where you draw the line, whether it's a cold email or whether you're just marketing. But you have to understand that when you're doing direct marketing, you need to understand people need to opt in. So if I attend your events, for example, and my understanding is that I'm only attending your event for the sake of that, and that's why I need to register online. Come on, don't sell me your newsletter. That's not the right thing. I didn't opt in. I did not opt in for that. All I did was come for your event, and that was it. You didn't tell me, you didn't even give me the option to say if you want to receive more updates from us. I didn't opt in. I didn't sign in for that. So how do you do all of these things? You're probably wondering and all of that. You probably want to have a large contact base where you do it. And I don't know whether we've seen this thing before where you probably stumble on Twitter or maybe you do it on Facebook and you see someone saying, I have 60,000 contacts in maybe 720 something local governments in Nigeria. If you need it, contact me, something like that. So all of those things, data hawking, it's not ethical. It's not ethical. I mean, so also zero knowledge in design. I mean, that's something that is actually quite good. I think we should read more about this. It's something that's actually very important. Zero knowledge. Yeah, I think that should probably be some takeaway. I don't have practical session, but that should be some takeaway from this. Zero knowledge in design, which means keep it as minimal as possible. Keep the design as good as possible. Don't obscure, no dark design, no behavioral design influencing and all of that. So also, you can do some sort of, I wrote audit impact assessment. That's like ethics impact assessment. That's when away from data protection impact assessment, which is actually a legal requirement in so many jurisdictions, or maybe human rights impact assessment, which a lot of businesses do now. I'm trying to play responsible business cards, and of course, they try to make it available to the public just to show the extent of their transparency. So maybe we need to do some sort of ethical impact assessment to like, okay, let's know what we have done here. Okay, it's legal, but is it right? All those email addresses. I mean, I get like a lot of emails from a lot of law firms. I mean, I just walked into your event and that was it. Sadly, there's a law firm, and I'm making this example now. And all I did was to exchange an email with one of the partners, and now I get their newsletter every month. So I don't know how people do those things, but that's unethical. I mean, I didn't opt in for that. All I did was to send you an email. We had a few things over email, and you added me up to your contact list. I didn't sign up for that. So how do you manage all of these things? Then diversity. I mean, diversity is one of the few things that has been the argument around fixing bias. So we heard about AI making terrible judgments about whether it's facial recognition or whether it's some whatever it is, whether it's employment, and because it affects people of some races, religion, some sexual orientation, and all of that. So diversity, it has to be as diverse as possible. And when we say diversity, I mean, just to make it as a joke, anyway, but you're not tired of running into webinars where you see like a lot of just men alone. And it looks like, is it just a men's world, or maybe there are really no women in that space? So we need to do better, really, of diversity. And diversity is just not gender line. It could mean race, it could mean tribal, it could mean ethnical, it could mean perspective, it could mean it's a lot of it's quite complex, but it's something we should not ignore. So that's one bit. Then we've got respect for the person behind the data, which means you have to treat, which is the human-centric view to it, human at the center of it. You need to like, it's not just, if it's personal, especially if it's data that is personal in nature, for example, you need to think of it like a human being. Think of the human right, think of all of those things, the risk, the danger, but you need to be aware of all of these things first too. Then always have a legal basis. I mean, if I buy for those who like to do the direct marketing thing, for example, you buy contacts, whether you're buying contacts or whether it's just coming to your event, then you start spamming people, because that's what it is actually. Do you have a legal basis for doing that? I'm very sure you can't have a legal basis for doing that because it can't be consent, and I don't have a contract with you. I mean, I didn't opt in, so there is no consent there. So you have to have a legal basis always. That's like something that's actually quite fundamental, whatever it is you're doing. Then integrate ethics into all your data supply chain. I mean, it's something that is very important, from the entrance, from the sign-in to the top management level. So whatever it is, whether you're transferring data, whether you're sharing it, whether you're collaborating, you need to make sure at every point in time you're doing the right thing. That sign-in register where you use, whether it's manual, whether it's automated, for example, do you ensure that that guy that is, or that woman that is manning that your entrance, do like, I mean, number of times you sign in behind someone, you see their names, their phone number. If I need it, I take it from there. Cyber stalking is a thing. It's the risks are endless. How do you manage those? Did they just end up selling into the suya guy? Do you destroy them? So a lot of questions that we need to ask ourselves. The time is not enough, I know, but I think this is just like starting the conversation, and this is something that we should, I think we should reflect on as a business, as a law firm, because it's not. I mean, the society look up to us as some beacon of right thing, and I think it needs to start with us. And we need to be like a player. We need to do the right thing as well. And there are so many ways to do the right thing that doesn't really affect your baseline. It doesn't really impact on your business because there's something they call responsible business. I think there's even a UN instrument around that, conducting responsible business. So those are the things we sign up for, so many obligations and all of that. But we need to understand what we're doing. We need to also make sure what we're doing is human centric. And at the end of the day, we end up doing the right thing. So yeah, so this is just some sort of data thing I just pulled up. So according to the American Bar Association, maybe someday we'll have a version of this kind of report where we do like this too. So these are just some statistics out there. I'm guessing the slide will share with us pretty much later. So and that's this part where I talked about making sure at every point in time there is ethics at every supply chain, and this is the part where you need to follow the data. You can hop on your business line, but the truth is, if someday you become exposed, and we live in a rumor mongering society where rumor thrives, so it's just going to be like this CBD law firm suffered a data breach. Please don't tell anyone. Then someone told me, but please don't tell anyone. Then from not telling anyone, it's just look at the ripple effect. So like I said, we live in a rumor mongering society where if things like that get outside, or where maybe on an ethical practice that we do with data, whether it's the direct marketing bit or whatever it is that we do next, or whether we are the ones actually even selling or just sharing without even knowing, and it gets out in the public domain like that. So think of the ripple effect when things go around. Even if you come back to disclaim it, that truth never really catches up with. Yeah, they say it catches up maybe, but the truth is, it goes so wide and fast that by the time the truth comes out, by the time your truth comes out, let me put it that way, by the time your truth comes out, it's really hard. And that could mean loss of revenue, loss of business, reputational loss, something really hard on your image. I mean, sadly, DLA is a global law firm, but when you want to talk about data breach in so many contexts, maybe you're speaking about cybersecurity in law firms, is one of the easiest examples to pick on. So, I mean, these are some of the things that we don't need to ignore. Don't let it happen first before we start doing the right thing. So, at the end, I'll conclude by saying we have a responsibility. We have a serious obligation in our hands as professionals, and looking at how privileged our profession is. But beneath all of that, we need to always do the right thing. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So I don't know if I have questions. If there's still time, we can run through that.
Thank you so much, Ridwan. That was quite insightful, and I must say, you gave quite a number of tips on how we can properly and ethically handle law firm data. Which brought me to a question. There's a question here by Christine, but before I get into Christine's question, I know you touched on that before, but I want to also ask you, Ridwan, are you there? Are you there?
I can hear you.
Great. So I just want to ask, in terms of knowledge or understanding the core principles of the ethics of data management, do you think this should be included in the curriculum for legal education or continue legal education? Should it start from law school? Should we actually, should the next generation of lawyers or the current generation of young lawyers be taught these principles?
Ali, honestly, so many things are happening in the world right now that um, I think if we end up bundling all of these things into the law school curriculum, it might probably be too much because I actually feel I felt when I was in law school, um, it was actually a lot. I think we had by week 3 to week 20. So I feel that is actually a lot. But I also feel there are so many things we do that actually it doesn't match up with our reality anymore. So we need to switch things up a bit. If it means taking down some things that are no longer like, I'm sorry, for example, I mean that cost. I think is it in professional ethics what you do this how to calculate costs that no one views like that anymore. So I mean, if you take out things like that and replace it with things like this, so many things are happening, and if you don't prepare people for what is out there, it might actually be a problem. Because, like I said, data protection is a thing. It's popular. It's financially rewarding now. People are paying attention to it. But you might do data protection almost right, and you might ignore the ethical side of what you're doing. You might do security side because, of course, there is a cost to that, and you might ignore ethics in all of the process. So, for me, I think the conversation should actually start at the university level. Somewhere we should, even if it's just a topic, we should do some one-on-one session for this kind of thing. Ethics, data protection, security bits, people should know. So when they know, and maybe some sort of advanced session in the law school, I don't know how these things work really, but I think it's something that we need to like throw into the mix at some point because we can't ignore these things. I mean, it's an existential reality. We can't ignore them.
You're right. And I also agree that it should start from the university level because I remember in law school, we had professional ethics, of course, but there was a topic on how long you should keep client data or how long you should hold on to client data before you destroy. And this was in reference to paper formats, like primarily paper-based data. So I believe these curriculums need to be upgraded for us to advance in this process. And one way to start is at least the courses like this, of course, but still, I understand that it will be very crucial for the Nigerian Bar Association or the Nigerian Law School to include forms of these data ethics and data management in their curriculum as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, but I do believe we have one more poll. So I'll just run the poll now and get feedback. I know it's been a long class. We've actually spent more time than we intended. So the final poll is on the next level of legal education. So that's been launched now. Um, So I just leave that up for some time for you to engage with it. But meanwhile, Ridwan, I'll go back to Christine's question. She asked, is it considered ethical to buy contacts from individuals themselves? As a digital media company, we periodically run SMS campaigns for our clients as a way to add to the database we are considering. We are considering purchasing numbers from potential consumers. Though we do not sell the data, it's strictly for in-house use. So what would you say about this?
Okay. You did not sell. I mean, that's really nice. But you're buying. That's some exchange. So there is this new concept around data ownership. And I hear it a lot when people say things like data is the new oil. For so many reasons, it might be oil. But we know oil is, at some point, we'll run out of oil someday. And also, the way the oil value chain is, we know what that is really too. But this is it. If you speak about human rights, you can't speak about data is the new oil in the same conversation. You speak about data protection or you speak about human rights. Because if you say data is the new oil, yeah, revenue. Yeah, you make money on it. You can't speak about data ownership and speak about data protection in the same conversation. So why that is also the case is because it means I can sell my health data, I can sell my HIV status, I can sell my sexual orientation. Why do I need to sell all of those things? Why do I need to get rewarded for selling my sexual orientation? So that's the way I see it. You can speak about data as a new oil at the same time, or you're speaking about data commodification or ownership at the same time you're speaking about protection. There's no way you can protect people if you want to like sell them out. So addressing the question, for example, you don't sell, that's nice, but you buy, that's some commodification going on. So, but what you buy, which maybe at that point you probably not cross the line, did they opt in? If they opt in, the company who you bought from, did they inform those people that, sorry guys, we'll be sharing this with our partners? Or maybe in your own website, for example, you have it there, maybe you create some sort of notice for them, like people who you don't get their information directly, but you got it from like third-party sources, and how you manage the information. Do you have that in place? So currently, there's really no law that actually criminalizes data hawking in Nigeria. So what you might be doing, I mean, the Cybercrime Act didn't criminalize data hawking. The Data Protection Act, Data Protection Regulation too, didn't define it as a crime. But of course, it might be subject to the Data Protection Regulation where someone complains about that kind of thing, for example. So I think that's the way to see it. So before we start defining, so in that sense, because you don't have a law expressly criminalizing data hawking, it means what you're doing is legal, right? But it's not ethical. Because if you want to also look at whether it's legal, it's also to establish, the law says you should have a legal basis. What legal basis do you have when you get data from third-party sources? You want to say legitimate interest, but sadly, legitimate interest is not even a legal basis in Nigeria. So if you say legitimate interest, for example, let's even assume legitimate interest of your business is the legal basis you're relying on. Is it necessary? Is it proportionate? You might not be able to answer that question. You might probably need to do a legitimate impact assessment to probably answer that question. And trust me, the answer will probably come back in the negative, because we've got countries who have special laws, for example, around whether it's spamming. Countries like Canada, Spain has like a spam act, anti-spam act. In Europe, there is an e-privacy directive that regulates data. That regulates direct marketing, telemarketing, and all of that. And the key line is, if you want to telemarket, you need to have a legal basis. Often than not, it has to be the opt-in. It has to be consent of the person you want to send message to. And I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, a friend in Botswana received a message from one of the telcos, and she actually wrote a complaint. She actually wrote a complaint to them, and they had to like issue a public apology about sending direct marketing. There are like two cases I'm familiar with in Nigeria, one against Airtel, and I think the other, against MTN, one lawyer, barrister Inaya also, against MTN, and I think another one is against Etisalat. It was on data, it was on direct marketing too. So that's where it becomes a problem. If someone receives the message from the marketing campaign that you run, if someone gets the message and make a complaint, that's when it becomes a problem. So I think you probably want to think about things like that when you want to make a decision. Do they opt in? And when they opt in, do they know that's what we've done with their data? So those are part of the things I think you should have at the back of your mind. So you don't spend the money you're looking to make, you don't spend it defending yourself. It's just an investment. It's quite tactical.
Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Christine. So if there are more questions, Ridwan is the last speaker for today.